Hello, welcome back to my Second Life. I am Markham Weatherwax, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about um, physics optimization or object physical shape optimization in Second Life, and why that is important to not have unnecessary physical shapes in all of your designs or landscaping or interior design or whatever else. One thing that is very important to remember is that every physical shape taxes the server that your region or sim is on. It taxes it a little bit. And the more physical shapes you have, the more activity it has to process. Meaning, if you've got two physical shapes overlapping each other, the server has to calculate all the physical shape of both or multiple objects, and especially if they overlap. And you don't need overlapping physical shapes, and you don't need unnecessary physical shapes. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. But right now I want to show you two boxes. One basic is a basic box, build box, and I've hollowed it, and the first one I've set to a physics shape type of Prim. I'm using the Firestorm Viewer for this. It has a lot of options that I use that simplifies a lot of my day-to-day work or getting around or doing whatever else that the SL Viewer doesn't have. So I'm going through this as in Firestorm, and there'll be some slight differences over the SL Viewer, but the basics are still there. Some things like align, it's much more difficult to align objects if you've got if you're using the SL Viewer, and pain in the butt for me. Anyway, so the first box, identical boxes, solid boxes. I've set the first one to Prim, and I've set the second one to Convex Hull. And you see the difference here. In Firestorm, under the Build menu, it allows me to show the physics shape when editing and show my selection outline. And I usually enable both those when I'm working on a lot of stuff. Now, what are the difference between Prim and Convex Hull? Prim, it is basically covering every part, every surface of an object when it defines the physical shape. So if it has an opening, if it has a hole or a bump or an indentation, it coats that. If you have a hole, it coats the inside walls of the hole, leaving the actual hole itself open. That's a lot more processing or complexity that the server has to deal with. Convex Hull, alternatively, covers the entire shape of an object. The outside of an object to the greatest degree, meaning the farthest part of it. Doesn't matter if it's a box or a shape that's a twisted shape. It coats the entire thing in basically a plastic wrap, shrink wrap over it. And in fact, it doesn't really shrink wrap. It's more like just putting it in a plastic baggie. Whereas Prim, it coats every part, every surface, and shrink wraps onto every surface. So this puts a little bit more on here. Covers the entire thing, outside shape, complete shape, or the area of a shape. And I can show you here, I've got some hedges back here, and because the hedge has so many elements to it, it is, and it branches off a little bit here and there, it creates a much larger physics shape box wrap than something more simple like this. This is pretty close to the everything, the edges and everything. Now the difference between Prim and Convex Hull, like I said, is it Prim coats every part of it except for the openings and the dents and the indentations and the bumps, whereas Convex Hull puts the whole wrap on it. So as you can see, I can't walk through this, but I can walk through this. That seems to be better. Some people mistake Convex Hull as being the more complex physics shape, but it's not. It's a simpler one, whereas Prim isn't a good name because we use Prim, the word Prim, for a lot of things, and we used to use it for objects or land impact or LI. It used to be Prims. A lot of us still call them Prims, but we really are talking about LI or land impact. Now, if I was designing landscaping and a house and I wanted to put up a fence, I might put up a hedge behind it and a wall behind that just to make it look good. And the physics shape of this fence, as you can see, the blue part, all the linked parts, the whole physics shape is this entire fence. If I set it to Prim, it would consider all these holes in here and make that just unnecessarily complex. It would probably increase the land impact. And on some things it will, on some things it won't. And then this wall is also has a physical shape, as does the hedge. The hedge is the large one. Now the problem with this design is I have 3 physical objects that are going to be touching each other. I don't want the physical objects overlapping each other. If I take this physical object and put it back up against my hedge, now I've got my hedge box or physics shape box overlapping the fence, which has its own physical settings, and it completely defeats the purpose of having a physical shape. It's going to be inside another physical shape, and it does nothing, and it accomplishes nothing other than adding complexity to the server calculation. So usually, when you have 2 physical objects, and let's say I line them together, it's going to put my one physical object right up against the physical object part of the thing I'm attaching it to. And look at all that space, because this is somewhat large that it's covering this. Now I just want to take this back because that's the design I want. I want it closer. I don't want that extra space in there. To optimize this particular thing, as you can see, it's a complete physical shape. And I don't need it to be. I can edit my length and select my smallest part of my linked object set, the root prim. And the root prim is always the first link in a set. So if I edit link and I use these little arrows and go here, and link number 1, that's my root prim. Every time you link objects together, the last thing you select will become the root prim. And this, I'm taking it up a different way. I'm saying edit link, and I'm holding down my shift key and selecting my root prim, and it deselects it, unhighlights it. And then everything else is still highlighted, all the rest of it. I can select none to that. We all noticed it turned white. That's because the root prim is the one thing you cannot set to none. Everything else you can set to none. Now I can walk through this fence all the way up to my post, and I can't walk through that post. I'm going to put this back where it was. And now we can see that my hedge physical shape is overlapping the, including the fence. And I can't walk through that fence. So what I've accomplished here is, this is no longer a physical object. This remains a physical object, because it has the bigger thing. But the server doesn't have to process this all, and then the overlap consideration. It only has to process this lonely post at the end of the fence. I could do the same thing with the wall behind it. However, there are only 2 links, 2 parts to this wall. And it would be a little bit harder to do. I would have to move it closer in and basically have it almost stick out that far for me to make it whatever, a none. But then only I'd have to change the link set of this to make this part here the root prim, whereas the bottom one, which is the largest part, is already the root prim, and that defeats the entire purpose. So I'll show you a trick to what I've done that. I've already done this, so I'm going to show it to you now. I created a box, a really basic little box, fill box. Then I selected my fence and linked it to the box. And then I did the same thing with the wall. I selected my box last and connected it to box, whose name is object. I haven't named it yet. What did I accomplish here? I have my fence, and I have my wall are now basically not physical shapes, and I cannot walk through wall. So I'm trying to walk through it. I can't walk through it. I can walk up against it, but not through it. The only thing physical in these two, the fence and the wall, is this little box, which I can take and hide and make invisible, whatever I want. So I've gotten rid of the 2 problems. I've gotten rid of the physical shape got it closer to where I needed it to be. Don't have that ugly little space between the fence, the hedge, and the wall. Don't have that extra space. If I want, I can take some parts and move them around a little bit. Whatever I want, but the thing is, it still has that physical shape. Notice that? I moved that outside of that protective box, meaning the hedge's shape. So I'll edit the link. I'll look back. That, and you can see how much farther I need to go to get this to be covered. That's about it. I'm walking up against the wall. The server doesn't have to calculate all of this. It just needs to calculate the physical shape of the hedges. The same thing will apply to many other things, from furniture to plants, trees, and whatever. A lot of creators, older creators and newer creators, use the same general process for when they release things. Or the way they set things up. They don't pay much attention to physics on the server, but the physical shape has to be processed, calculated on the server. There is no reason for a tree and its apples to be a physical shape beyond a certain point. Really, you want the trunk to be a physical shape. Now, someone may say, oh, you could accomplish the same thing you did with the over here by just saying phantom. But here's the caveat to that. That only applies to the viewer you're using, you, the client side. The server still has to process everything that has a physical shape that's not been set to none. It has to calculate that even if selected phantom. And yeah, you can walk through it, but the server still sees this as a physical object with a physical shape and is calculating that up in the ether. And here we go. We got a tree. Nice tree. Everything in this tree. Let's edit the link. They made a box in it already, which is nice. That's the first link. The root Prim. Everything else is Convex Hull. It has a physical shape. And if you look up here in the physical shape, you will see I'll turn off the outline for right now. See this little, this little triangle. And the triangles here are because it cannot show you actually the physical shape because it's so complex. At least I think that's why you see triangles when you're trying to see the physical shape. And that basically means it's not going to show you the whole range of the physics shape. Now you can see here the physics go all the way up here and around here, but they don't come down here at all next to the tree trunk. Nothing down here. But let's watch this. Ooh, I can't walk by it. That's because it's a physical shape. I try to walk by it, it's pushing me off, making me walk up, going out the other direction, doing all that. And in this regard, in this case, it's actually the tree trunk causing this. And I'll show you why. You have triangles up in the bush or the tree leaf part. You've got a physical shape on the apples. And in here, you see this little blue triangle down in the trunk of the tree. It's inside the tree, so you don't really see it, but you can tell that it's not giving you the full range or display of the physics because it can't, because it's a complex object. All these little branch offs and whatever else. So what we do here with this tree, we don't want it just all overlapping. So we got multiple parts. We have the last set of leaves. We have the first set of leaves at link number 2. The apples all being physical, having a physical shape, overlapping each other, and the server has to process that. And on top of that, the tree is animated very, very slightly. So that has to be addressed, or it could cause some more work for your server. So if you edit link, go beyond the link to root prim, you can set everything else to none. And you would think, okay, well, that's good. Excuse me. Walk through it. Luckily for us, because I don't want people to walk through that tree, this creator made a box. What I can do with that box, simply drag it down, make it larger, change the shape, and I can't walk through that tree anymore, but I can walk around it. And because, let's say I'm going to make multiple trees. I'm going to do multiple trees. I'm going to drag and drop copy, or drag copy. I've got 3 trees, and what they're doing is overlapping each other. Now, if you consider if all of this up here was physical, all the white parts, physical. If that was physical, the server that your region stem is on will have to calculate all that complexity, and that's too much. But having turned them to none, the server doesn't need to consider that. The viewer does. Your viewer, your client side does. And you can overlap things a little bit, and they won't interfere, and they won't each other, and they won't cause server any unnecessary processing. The same will apply to a different kind of tree. Now this tree, see here again, another big triangle, very complex, very complex. Entire design of this tree. Do that. Now this tree, if I was to make a box like I did with the fence, it would increase my land impact by 1. But the creator of this released the tree already set to phantom. Problem with that is whoever didn't take into consideration physics shape, especially of this massive stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to none. I can't set the tree trunk to none. And I don't want to increase my LI, my land impact, by adding a little box just because I don't want people to walk through there. So I'm going to leave that as phantom. People still walk through it, but all of that complexity of the branches, tree, leaves, and all of this doesn't need to be processed as a physical object. But like I said, even if you check this off as phantom, any part of the tree has a physics shape. It will consider each part of that physics shape unless it's set to none. The same thing applies to furniture. I'll give you an example. Couch. Every part of this couch is a physical object. That includes all the little design parts and buttons and whatever else. And the shadow prim. So, all of this stuff, every little bead on this design has to be considered by the server, processed, calculated, and every space between. That has no need to be a physical object. Certain parts, like the pillow base here, yeah, you might want to make that physical. You might want to make the back end physical, but you for sure don't need all these little buttons, design buttons being physical. And you might even want the very bottom base to be physical too, but all the rest of it is not unnecessary. Here's a trick. Highlight this and say edit linked, and then select a physics shape of none. You will get a pop-up warning that says cannot set root prim to have no shape. Just say OK because it left the root prim alone, but it made everything else to have no physical shape. I can go back to edit this and edit linked again, and I can select the back. I can select this part, the back. I can select the pillow base, and all that, all this rest of the stuff, including root prim, I don't need to have physical. And I set those three things to Convex Hull, and they now have the physical shape. Now, if I select the shadow prim, it's set to none. Good. But these kind of things are still complex. Still have little parts you cannot see how far it extends. You saw the triangle. Too complex. So what I decided to do is edit link, say none. I'm back to that where only the root prim set to none. Next, I've created a box. Okay, let's redo that minute mistake. I made a box. I'll name it couch box. And I'm going to put this box forming around my couch. Just at the bottom. I could go higher, but I don't want to. Might need two boxes for that to make it really efficient. Just under the couch seat. I can select my couch, and I can select my box, link them together. Did not increase my land impact. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Now that is protected. And I can have everything else in here except for the little name box inside of the couch and this outside box being the only physical shape. everything else, all the complex stuff that may have areas outside of my visual range, that can be that's no longer a problem. I can edit, select my box, and I can go ahead and make it fully transparent, hide it. There you go. One last thing I want to show you is that things like on shelves, objects on shelves. Now, I've made this bookcase. Everything in here is linked. But all the little stuff, the books, the objects, the art, everything else is set to none. Don't need to be physical shapes if it's up on a shelf. The only physical shapes you really need are things that will prevent you from walking through them. And the bookcase does that already. I can't walk through my bookcase for that part. But everything else, cups on your counter, all this little stuff doesn't need to have physical shapes. All the artwork doesn't need to have physical shapes. And so the physics setting should be to none, and there'll be less work for your region server to need to process. Because in this case, if all this was set to a physical shape, it would have to calculate the physical shape of the bookcase and the physical shape of each and everything that is inside of that. And it's really redundant and doesn't need to be done. And that's basically it. How you as an end user can optimize everything you own and put out so it uses less of the server's resources, processing power. Now you might think this is just one little thing, one little bookcase or one little tree, but we're talking about the entire region, not just your particular or one or two things. It's everything that's in the region. Things that do not need a physical shape should not have a physical shape. And for sure, physical shape should not be overlapping, because that's going to be causing the server more work, and it can slow down ever so little or a lot, much more than script usage. It can slow your server down. So anyway, I hope everybody appreciates this and gets some benefit out of it. And if I've got anything wrong, let me know. Thank you very much. Take care.